Okay, so back again. Where we left off, one of the things I asked you to think about is what is international business law? And that's basically the question that I have, that I hope that you start thinking about as we work through these materials today and as we embark on to the seminar next week. Is international business law at all? Is it a discrete body of law like contract, tort, or constitutional law? Probably not. Some might even ask whether or not it's law at all. As I mentioned before, there's no international government as such. International courts and the World Trade Organization and similar bodies don't have the kind of powers and jurisdictions that domestic national courts have. So we need to think about what the difference is between international and domestic. And when we're thinking about international law, we need to understand it in a domestic context as well as an international context, because the power that law has often comes from its domestic context. So I want you to think about this and think as we work through the materials what you understand international law to be and what it is that you think your clients are likely to understand by it. Now, basically, there are kind of three ways of thinking about international business. It's a complex term, and arguably all business is international business because the world is so globalized. It is, even here as I'm sitting in a hotel room in Hoi An in the central part of Vietnam, I can't go into a restaurant, I can't walk down a street without seeing a QR code that allows me to access a WhatsApp number or a way of buying something or ordering something using these international technologies that are ultimately owned by Meta, which is an American listed company. Clearly, when you walk into a 7-Eleven or you go to Coles or Woolworths, even though these are companies that are Australian companies, you are seeing goods on the shelves that are coming from all over the world. You're interacting with a point of sale system, most likely, that sits in a cloud. Sure, the data might be in Australia, but the actual technology and the database infrastructure could be based anywhere in the world. So when we're thinking about international business, I think we can break it up into these three kind of categories. And we can be thinking about we can think about the exchange of goods, services, technology, capital, or even knowledge across national borders. Excuse me. My apologies. In a future world, though, those things will be edited out, I promise. We can also think about it in this second way here. We can think about activities that include import or export, direct foreign investment. We're going to have a separate topic on that by itself. Licensing, franchising, global supply chain management, the actual activities that are required to do business internationally. And thirdly, I think we can think about it as a broad and multifaceted concept involving various kind of interactions, economic interactions, cultural interactions, political, and of course what we're most interested in, the legal interactions. Oh, goodness me, sorry about that. I will get there eventually. Jonathan has recommended, and the slide has a link, but I don't think it's currently working, sorry about that, to the film The Corporation, and this kind of idea of the corporation itself as potentially having psychopathic tendencies. There is no doubt the corporation as we understand it is narcissistic and very self-interested. But when we're thinking about corporations, all of you should have done corporations law or company law. You understand that a company is a legal personality. It can sue and be sued in its own name. It has obligations. It has responsibility. And when we're thinking about transnational corporations, we're talking about the kinds of corporations that do business in more than one place. Transnational corporations play a fundamental role in domestic economies and in the international economy. The way that we think about the economy and growth can be very much dependent on the starting place that we have, either as capitalists or socialists or somewhere in between, about thinking about what the role of the corporation is and the private citizen is, as opposed to the role of government. Corporations are still, for what it's worth, relatively new technologies. I think of the corporation as a legal technology designed to get around the problem of how to sustainably allow a gentleman to invest another gentleman's money. But corporations in one form or other have been influential since way back in the initial trading times. The Southeast Asia Company, what was it called? I hate it when I have these little brain farts because something is happening off in the background. But the whole of the colonization of Indonesia, Malaysia and Java was effectively run not so much by a government, but by trading corporations, largely Dutch ones initially, wanting to bring herbs, spices and wooden and gold metal products back from Asia into the European markets. So while transnational corporations have been influential since the 19th century, they've really come into their own shape in the late 20th century and the early 21st century, as we've seen that influx of and growth of globalization. So what are our key components of international business? So clearly, and the relevant ones that we were talking about here are trade. So the heart of international business is trade, which is ultimately the export, so selling abroad, or the import, I should say, so buying from abroad of goods or services. Companies or entities that engage in trade do so to access larger markets, to acquire resources, to diversify their products, and to reduce costs. There is actually anthropological theory that suggests that one of the reasons why the particular species of hominoid that became the Homo sapien did so was because that particular species was interested and curious about travel. And so while there are a number of species that apparently made tools in the pre-Neanderthal times, only one species not only took those tools and used them in one place, but there is evidence that they took them to other places. And we're seeing, it's only when we see tools that are made out of resources that were from many miles or even, hundreds of miles away, that we see that growth and transfer of knowledge that has helped the evolution of society. So trade has been important since essentially the beginning of time that we as a species have known it. Okay, foreign direct investment, we'll come back to that. We've got a whole topic on it later in the semester. But what we're talking about when we talk about FDI, foreign direct investment, is when a company invests directly in facilities to produce or to market a product in a foreign country. So FDI includes establishing subsidiaries, acquiring stakes in existing companies abroad, employing people, buying premises, entering directly into the economy. Another thing that is quite relevant is licensing and franchising. So companies can allow entities in foreign countries, I keep saying that, in foreign countries, to use their intellectual property. Coca-Cola, the brand you see all around the world. The Coca-Cola company basically licenses its intellectual property to different bottlers around the world, who then use it to produce that somewhat toxic, sticky, sweet stuff. And they do this for a fee. Licensing is more common for manufacturing and product rights, but franchising is often used when you're expanding a service business. One of the largest law firms in the world, Baker & McKenzie, I still say and because I'm old, but Baker McKenzie may still be, don't know anymore, but was a franchise model that it would essentially had separate partnerships around the world, all trading under the same name, under a license that was owned by a Swiss corporation. 7-Eleven, KFC, McDonald's all have franchising operations where essentially the know-how, the way, the method for running the business owned internationally and then licensed through licenses and franchise agreements to independent operators and some corporatized operators around the world. Now, global supply chain is the fourth and the next most important thing that we want to talk about here. Sorry, the way I said that, it implied that these are of some sort of diminishing importance. No, they're on the list in the order that they appear on the list. No magic to it. And really they're here to try and trigger your interest into what it is that you want to focus on. So global supply chain management is about coordinating the production, shipment and distribution of products across multiple countries to minimize costs and ultimately to maximize efficiency. Companies clearly need to source raw materials, they need to be able to manufacture products, they need to deliver services across the globe, and they want to do that in ways that means that they can be consistent with their service quality, that consistent with their profits, that they can meet the consumer demands, that they're creating consumer demands in places that you go. One of the fun things to do when you're traveling, I'm sure, is to go in and see what's different in a brand of, say, a fast food chain, a Subway or a Starbucks or a McDonald's, something like that, particularly if you know and love them. Frankly, I don't, but hey, each to their own, and see what's different, what they've localized to make work, and then also see how those things sometimes then come back again. The McCafe is a really good example of that, the idea of a cafe within a McDonald's was actually a Melbourne franchise, ultimately a Melbourne initiative, turned out to be popular, went around the rest of Australia and subsequently can be found in other parts of the world as well. International marketing naturally leads us into this idea of international marketing, where we're talking about tailoring and promoting products and, of course, services to meet cultural, legal and consumer preferences in different countries. And clearly that HSBC ad that we've asked you to have a look at really kind of highlights that point very elegantly, I think. And then, of course, one of the really key components is cross-cultural management, being able to understand and manage cultural differences and different business practices, ways of negotiating, and human resources across countries and between countries. Now, your colleagues doing the MBA have many subjects around this. Unfortunately, as lawyers, we don't seem to have enough time in our training to talk to you very much about how people work and that dealing with people question, which is sad really, because being a lawyer is ultimately a people-focused job. People don't come to see lawyers because they've got a legal problem. They come to you because they have a problem. They don't want to know what the law is. They want to understand what they need to do to solve or avoid a problem or to mitigate, reduce a risk in some way. And when we're doing that across borders, there are significantly more complexities. And then ultimately, once we've thought about what international business is, we need to actually think about, well, why does it matter? A few different things here, like economic growth, of course. International business stimulates economic growth by providing markets for goods and services. It creates jobs, it fosters innovation when it's done well. Access to resources. Companies can access essential resources that might not be available in their home country or not available at the right kind of price by taking a global outlook. So this could be raw materials, it could be labor, it could be technology. Diversification. So going back to the economist Adam Smith, one of the benefits of industrialization is that ability to specialize. But also for an economy to grow, it needs to have diversification. Sorry about that. Aircon's on too loudly. So we need to have diversification in order to foster growth and innovation.